Hi, this is Alex from Stressless Therapist, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about an unexpected benefit to having really good clinical documentation and how that's going to ultimately help your client's bottom line and get them better health care than maybe even you can provide. What am I talking about? Because the documentation is all about the work that you do with your client. But have you considered about how that documentation can impact care outside of your office? Um, we all write these notes, and sometimes they're short and sweet, sometimes they're super long, and we can wonder if they ever get read. And there might be times when they're not, but if you have a client who has maybe complex medical needs or is working with a lot of different medical providers for various things, having quality documentation is going to really be an essential turning point for their care, because that documentation is essentially going to be used as your communication with other providers. So let me explain a little bit more. I mean, we all know the benefits of having good quality documentation for our own work, right? It helps us remember what we did. It helps us understand kind of how the symptoms relate to the interventions. It's a fantastic kind of CYA, protecting us from any legal things as it discusses why we do what we do. But if we think about it from kind of a multidisciplinary approach, it helps other practitioners. Now, whether that be a primary care physician, it could be a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, a surgeon, a psychiatrist, any type of other professional, it gives them an idea of what is going on in the therapy room. Right? Now, there is an art to documenting, right? You want to have enough information so they have a clear picture of what's happening in session, what's the client struggling with, what are the symptoms that they're presenting with. But you also still want to maintain that privacy because other people very well can be reading this. Um, so being able to use your notes in a way that is clear, concise, and understandable is going to help that patient communication and ultimately help kind of other providers give their best version of care. It might be easier to kind of explain this with an example. So think of a client who is maybe clinically depressed, and you've been working with them for a long time using kind of a cognitive behavioral therapy method, but they're still persistently experiencing signs of depression, that they just can't get out of this funk. So they go to meet with a psychiatrist. Now, the psychiatrist doesn't have as long of a relationship with you, they might be new, and they're really going to want to know what is going on, what's working, what's not working. So in your intake, in your treatment plan reviews, in your progress notes, whatever they might be reading, it is a wonderful way for them to get a clear understanding of what symptoms the client is presenting with, right? Maybe evidence as to why things are sticking, some barriers that they might be kind of struggling with. And it's going to help the doctor know more about their lifestyle, right? Are they self-medicating with alcohol? And if so, maybe certain medication is not going to be appropriate. Maybe they have to use a lot of heavy machinery for work, so having something that is really drowsy is not going to help them either. Maybe they're concerned about weight gain and body image, and so that's important to know so the provider can provide medication that maybe doesn't have as much weight gain as a side effect, things like that. Another place where that documentation can be really helpful is discharge. If you have a fantastic discharge summary, or if you are transferring to a different mental health provider, having a comprehensive understanding of what worked and what didn't work is going to help them pick up where you left off and help that client get to an even farther kind of path in their recovery. Now, what makes for good documentation in terms of collaboration? You want it to be short and sweet but comprehensive, meaning you want whoever is reading it to be able to look at it within a minute or two and understand clearly what you are trying to say. Now, having some type of system, or I like to use a template, really can help with that because they can go directly to a certain section, say for example symptoms, and know where to look, right? A medical provider doesn't really care too much about the interventions. They're going to really care more about the symptomatology, the barriers, what's working, what's not working. But the how, that's kind of your domain. It's not really theirs. So having something that has that listed out clear and easily is going to be really helpful. You might do that with bullet points. You might have that in some type of narration. If you're doing it with the narration, though, make sure that you're using jargon that everyone can kind of understand, including the patient, because the patient very well might be reading this too. You don't want to use too many medical words just in case someone doesn't know it. You can't assume everyone knows what you know, especially if they're in a different field. So having it concise but still comprehensive, right? You don't want to skimp on details like the symptoms, the length of time they've been experiencing those symptoms. If you have any kind of objective measurements and data that you can use, that's even better. But having that available to you, which you can then share to them, is really going to be helpful. I know I went through kind of a lot of information really quickly. I will link to some other blog posts that I hope will give you some more detailed information. Things like outcome measures, as well as the blog post that goes over the more detailed the link between medical records and that communication style. And if documenting is a struggle for you, I strongly encourage you to maybe check out the course that I offer on how to create quality documentation, but also do it in a time efficient manner. And I do that through templates, and it's changed my world, and I hope it'll be helpful for you too. So I'll put a link to that down below as well. But that's it for now. I hope this little tidbit helps, and happy documenting.